Hey, welcome guys. Today what we have is a Bobba Fett model. Now this is the box that came in. I've opened it up and the parts came in a bag, but I've already opened it up and kind of looked at it. It included a picture of the completed model and some one-page diagram of the instructions. Pretty basic. It's like we have the parts where you need to trim off the excess. This is a vinyl kit. And a little bit about the instructions here. And it says it's manufactured in Japan by Kyoto. So let's take a quick look at what we have. Of course we have the legs here. Of course that's flashing, we'll have to cut off. Looks like we get a resin blaster. Pretty nice. Looks like there's a little bit of cleanup to do on that, but it's a nice resin blaster. Looks like we get some resin parts, the top of his, I guess the rocket from his backpack. And it's like there's a metal piece here, probably to his sensor or visor part on his helmet. And I believe that's it for the resin parts. Let's take a look at his helmet. Pretty nice. It doesn't have the dent in it, so we'll have to figure out how to do that. Maybe we can just kind of melt it in there. Not sure. Got the piece kind of the torso. Got the torso. This is some nice detail for his little braiding and stuff. Nice for his backpack. So it all looks pretty nice. Nicely detailed, should be fairly large once we get them all put together. So first thing, we have to trim up all the excess, and we're just going to, you can do that a couple ways. You can use hot water or a blow dryer. You just heat it up till it gets a little malleable, and when you do that, you want to take a really, get a new X-Acto blade, and it should cut off pretty easily. I've done a few vinyl kits now, and once you heat it up, it does cut quite easily. It's pretty difficult right now. So I just have to do that to all the parts. It's like there's, here we have like the thrusters that have to be separated and the various parts. This looks like, now this is his little cape. We may use that. Maybe we can see if we can use some actual fabric to make it look more lifelike. We'll see how that turns out. I'm still open to using that. Everything looks pretty nice. Doesn't come with any decals. So that's kind of a bummer. You know, I know he does have like his Mandalorian decal on one of his shoulder pads that shows every now and then. On some, I've seen some segments of the movie where it was on there and some where it wasn't. So we will see how it goes. So let's just get started. All right. Well, I have most of the pieces trimmed up. I've actually attached, this is just sitting on there, it's not glued, pretty tight. I've attached his backpack on, cut out that kind of a square piece, and this actually fits inside. And of course his head has a little neck piece, and we'll glue that all into position. On his blaster rifle, there's quite a bit of cleanup, still a little bit more to go. I'm working on this section here underneath the scope. This was all solid, and I've had to just take my X-Acto knife and some files and stuff and work on that. And I may try to clear out that center section, but it was pretty rough, and it is resin, so you want to be careful not to breathe that in when you're sanding resin. I think a tricky part is going to be on the hand. You can see where I've had to cut away. It had like a pistol grip already in there, so I had to cut that out so his hand will fit in there. And we'll have to heat that out and kind of form it, but I think this all kind of connects in here, and it's going to be a little tricky to get that set just right. I have glued his forearm piece to his arm here, and just used super glue. It's good to have some Insta-Set to get it to bond quickly. This one was pretty easy to line up. It had this kind of this cord, whatever this is, coming down to his forearm piece, so I knew where to line that. I think with the other one, I don't have any kind of reference like that. So I'll just have to kind of take a look at the picture as best as I can on that. I've working on a way to make the dent in his helmet, so I was just testing out. I have this grinding wheel. It's like a sphere grinding one, and I heated it up, and I just practiced on this little piece here, so if I can get that in the focus. And I heated it up, and then it just kind of drilled out and made a nice little circle in there. So I think that'll work. I'm just going to use this little grounding piece, heat it up a little bit, and we'll just have to figure out exactly where we want that to get our little hole right there. So that's where we're at, and we'll just keep moving forward. Alright, so here we are coming along with the paint job. Obviously I've left his arms off for now. I'm going to use the gray primer that I put on, this spray can primer. I think that's a pretty good match. I did have to fill in a little bit. There was a little bit of these, I guess, seam lines, not really seam lines, mold lines that ran on the inside, and I just used some super glue to fill those in, and then lightly sanded the super glue. The vinyl doesn't really sand, but with the primer and the super glue, it gives you a little bit of a surface to sand, kind of smoothing that out. So I've, as you can tell, started painting them, and I'm just doing some hand brushing painting for now to see how that turns out. Being that he's so weathered and there's so much damage, I think it will give us a lot of leeway for mistakes and stuff of that nature. We're going to be adding washes, and he has a lot of color. So this is just a real basic first coat going on right now. I got his gun pretty much completed. We had to clean up, as you recall, the scope on top was a solid piece from end to end. So I had to drill out and just take my time with some little files and sanding sticks to kind of clean that up to get it to where it's at. I painted it with a gunmetal and dry brushed with some Vallejo steel. I painted the stock first a brown color, and then I went over with a black acrylic paint, and before that dried, just kind of took a rag and kind of pulled it back to kind of give it more of a textured wood look. Most of that's going to be covered. Its hand's going to come up front here, and so you're not going to see a whole lot of that. You're not going to really see the back of the gun. You're really going to see this part of it. So that's where we're at. I'm just going to work on hand painting a lot of it, and then we'll see where we're at. Alright, I've done a lot of the painting. Still a lot of detail painting to do. A lot left on his helmet. He's a bit glossy right now because I put on a clear gloss coat just kind of protect the painting. A lot of this is this hand painting. I did have to mask off like his knee and shoulders. I was having problems getting that yellowish orange color hand brushed on and looking good, so I ended up kind of masking it off and painting it on there. And it was exactly that. It was a mixture of yellow, but just a little bit of like an orange to darken it up a little bit. But the rest of it was hand painted. So from here, there's still some details, like I said, to go. And we're going to get into. I'm going to do some washes. There's some very fine detail painting. I still part of here, I guess, his helmet, his sensor, whatever it is. What they actually included was just a sewing needle, and I guess you cut it. I guess the plan is you cut that, and I didn't really like that. When I look at it, it would look more flat, so I took a small piece of metal and ground it down and made my own little flat piece, and I actually just heated it up and kind of sunk it in with the heat melting through the vinyl, and with just a little drop of super glue to hold it in place. Unfortunately, I think I've lost the little part that goes on the very top. I can't seem to find it. I know we have a few more little resin pieces that have to be cleaned up and painted. I have the top of his rocket here, I guess, that goes to his backpack. That still needs to be cleaned up, a couple little parts. But I think I lost the part that goes right here. Now, I think I can make that pretty easily out of some plastic, some styrene, and I'll worry about that last, because I think if I try to put that on right now, I'll just knock it off with all the handling I'm having to do in painting it. So I'm going to be doing some washes and weathering and some detail painting. About the arms. The arms was really difficult in getting this arm situation. It's really not where it should be. This arm is supposed to be grasping around, but to make room for this gun, being that it's a vinyl kit, you cut along, it kind of gives you a rust area to cut along. Well, to get these arms to kind of sit right and look right, and this one's actually, again, it's a little bit further back, but it was the only way I could kind of get these shoulders to not look and have huge, horrible gaps in them. And even then, I still had to fill in a little bit. and a lot of working with the wrist. I think I actually cut part of his hand off that's not visible to get his gun to sit flat. That was another issue I was having, is the gun was wanting to cant so much that his arm was looking weird and you couldn't get his wrist. So that part was probably the worst part of this kit so far, was just getting these arms on. This the gun that throws everything off, because it's pretty thick and they don't really give it enough space to fit in there right. But I finally got it in there in a way that I think will look fine once we get them all situated and painted. So we're just going to move on to weathering. Alright, I'm working on the weathering, as you can see right here, and I've chosen to go back to an old type of weathering I used to really enjoy. I just kind of got away from it. I was using liquid shoe polish. I just kind of mash it into a bowl to where I have some. As you can see, I've already kind of did part of them. And you just kind of brush it on, just like you would any other kind of wash. And in this case, we can pretty much do over everything. Because we want them dirty and stuff. And the great thing about this is it doesn't really soak into the paint. It just kind of coats it, and that's where we put that gloss coat over it, just to kind of make sure it doesn't seep into the paint. And once you get it on there, you can let it dry, and then you use a rag or Q-tips or something of that nature, and you just start cleaning off the areas. You know, always, and if it gets a little dry, just wet your Q-tip or put a little water on it, and you can brush it off. So it's kind of like painting in reverse. We're just removing what we don't no longer want, and you can clean up the areas as you see fit, as much as you want. And if you take too much off, you can always put some more back on. Usually I let it kind of go over it real softly with a brush, and then I start doing the more accurate details with my Q-tip. And we're going to put a dull coat over everything, so that'll lock it all in so it doesn't wipe off. It's really easy to work with. You have a lot of time, like I said, just stick a little water and it'll reactivate it, and you can kind of get how much you want on in there. So I'm going to finish up with that, and we'll just keep moving on. Alright, I have most of the detailed painting done. I did have a little bit of an accident. He fell over, well, I left him standing up one night, and he fell over and off the desk, and his arm came off, and it kind of broke right here at the shoulder, and I think the wrist also came off. Fortunately, it's a pretty easy fix. Just glued it back in. It just came apart at the joint. And the super glue I'd used kind of made it fit right back into place. So as you can see, I've done a lot of weathering to it, but there's still a lot of detail painting. Still, I'll have to do the gloss black area. I'm going to do that last, so I can get a gloss area on here. I still have to do a lot of the weathering, especially on the helmet. There's still a lot to go, but you can see where the painting. I have to add in his rocket back here. I have to fabricate a little sensor, I guess, to go on top of his visor. And after that, we'll mount them to a display base, and we should be done. So when I come back, we should be all finished. Alright, well, here's our finished vinyl Bobba Fett kit. This was manufactured in Japan by a company called Kyoto. I finished up with most of the weathering. Just doing some dry brushing, some dry pastels. Of course, I put a matte coat on everything except for his very front of his visor here. May come back and change the color of the backpack in the future. I've noticed there's more of a blue color in some of the pictures. I've seen it in green and blue, so I guess either way is not wrong. I've noticed some differences between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi of his outfit. There's some different colors. I think in Jedi his forearm guards are red, and Empire I think they were a different color. So anyway, this is my interpretation of them. Pretty happy with the way it turned out. I also made a cape here. I don't think I included that, and that's just some cloth. It started off as this textured cloth that I have, this fabric. I kind of folded it over, cut it up, folded it over, and kind of super glued it into the shape of his vest, or I'm sorry, not his vest, of his cape, and put a little brass fitting on the top here and pinched it in there. It's not quite to the way it's supposed to look, but that's the best I could kind of get it in there. This was the original part. It wouldn't really fit in because I adjusted his arm back a little bit. That made that not fit in, which I'm kind of happy anyway. It forced me to kind of make that, which I think adds on to the realism of it a little bit. We did the base. This is simple wood plaque. I took some white glue and glued in some sand, some pebbles. The rocks are some from rock molds where you just use plaster of Paris and let it dry and pull out these rock molds. Of course, I painted it some browns and did some a wash of a darker brown. The weeds are actually, I was kind of experimenting with that just from a cheap paintbrush. Kind of took it apart and was pulling out the weeds, and then kind of just drilled a little hole and glued those in. This bigger one is actually from an old broom. The bristles from an old broom. And just give it a little color and a little life to the model, to make a little display for it. So, that's my Bobba Fett. Pretty pleased with how he turned out there. And I hope you've enjoyed the video. And until next time, everybody have a good one.